Hello everyone. Today in this video we'll be discussing the fourth lab program of SS, which is regarding the shift reduce parsing. Okay, so before starting with this program you need to know what is shift reduce parsing. Okay, I've explained the shift reduce parsing in module 3, but here also I'll be revising it in a brief way, like what you need to know for this program itself. So what is shift reduce parsing is, suppose that we are given with this grammar. Okay, so what do you see in this grammar? There are three lines. How many lines are there? Three lines are there. In the first line you have e goes to e plus t or t. In the second line you have t goes to t star f or f, and here you have f goes to means in bracket e and id. Okay, these are the lines of the grammars which you have, and after that the input is also given to us. Okay, that which is id plus id star id. So how many things are given to us? Two things are given to us, which is the grammar and the id. Okay, so let's perform the shift reduce parsing with this grammar for this input. Okay, for this grammar we are using for shift reduce parsing, and what we are parsing is this input. Okay, so let's see how it works. Firstly, you have to draw three columns here and mention it as stack, input, and action. Okay, and inside the stack you have to mention as dollar first, and the input what they have given, that you have to mention here, and then action will be this one. Okay, let's see what is the actions and how do you approach this question. Firstly, as you can see, there is nothing here, as it's empty here. You cannot do anything here. So what you will be doing is, first step is just shift it here. So that's why I've written here shift id. So what you'll do, you'll shift id here, so id will come here in the second line. Then what you can do, you'll see id where it is written here. Id, where all you can find id, I can find here. Now f goes to id is written. If I reduce it, id can become f, right? If I reduce id, it can become f. Then I'll search where is f can become t, and t can become e. So finally I'll get e. So that's what I'm doing here. If it's possible to reduce, I'll reduce it. So I'll write f goes to id. So id will become as f here. Then I'll again see if f can be reduced further, and it becomes t, and t can be reduced further to e, and it will be stored here. Then I'll see, can e be reduced further? E cannot be reduced further, so I'll keep e as such, and I don't have any other operation here. So what I will do is, I'll shift the plus here. So I'll write here shift plus. When I shift it plus here, I will get plus here, and I'll see e plus can be reduced to something or not. So as I can as you can see, e plus itself is not available here, but e plus t is available, but e plus itself is not available here, so I cannot do anything. So again I'll shift it as, like, what is the next thing? I'll shift it here, so it will be id here. Then I'll see, and e plus id can be reduced or not. E plus id, e plus id cannot be reduced as of e plus id, but I can reduce id. id I can reduce as f I can reduce as t I can reduce as e, but I will not do that much. I'll just do id goes to f goes to t. So I'm just stopping at t, because if I stop at t, what will be my input is dollar was here, and e was first id, it became f, then it became t. So what I have is e dollar e plus t. This is the thing, because id changed to f and f changed to t. So this is what I have, e plus t. Now what I will do, e plus t is here, and that goes to e. I'll reduce it further to E, because I have this one, this whole will be taken, and I'll be reducing it to E. The same thing I have depicted here. First E goes to ID, then ID goes to F goes to T, then E goes to T will be here. So ID will be substituted as T, and E plus T can be written as E. So I have written reduce E goes to E plus T. After you have written this one, then shift plus here, this is the thing which is remaining, shift plus, shift ID also, then shift ID to F to T, then again E plus T is equal to E. If you get the starting symbol here, that means it's the accepted string. What you did from the starting, in the starting what we did is, this is the two things given to us, this is the grammar and this is the input. In grammar, how many lines you have? There are three lines, right? So what you will be doing is, you'll be starting with the stack, input, and action. You'll be making three columns, and you'll be writing here dollar, what is the input given to you, and what you're the performing, what action you're performing. So since you cannot perform any operation, you will shift it. If you have any reductions for this, you will be reducing it. If you don't have any means reductions, you will be shifting the next means symbol. Like that you will keep on doing, and shifting, reducing, each time you will be checking if reduction is possible, you will do it, else you will shift it. And finally, if you get E after all the reductions and shifts, then the string is valid. Okay, you will be writing it as accepted. There are two possibilities, that either E cannot come here, means that the last E might not come here, or even if E comes here, there are some characters here which is not yet shifted. Even if you shift those characters, it still cannot be reduced further. Means if a situation arises like that, that means it's not a acceptable grammar. Okay, so that's what the shift reduce is. So the same thing will be following in the code as well. So if I give you the overview of the code, in the variables used, we have the four main variables which are getting used. These are all what? Character arrays. Why we need character arrays is because for the input, reduce string, current string, and shift string. So input, whatever they give, that will be storing in a array. Okay, that array's name is a, is as it's given in the question, I mean the code. So I have taken it as a itself. So whatever the thing they have given to us, that I will be storing in an character array. Then I have two things, reduce string and shift string. I will come to that later. Before that, let's discuss what is current status. Current status means this one. Whatever I have to display here, whatever I will be displaying here, that will be stored in where? Current status. Whatever I have to display there, I will be storing in current status. If ID is stored here, I will be outputting ID here. Okay, in the output I'll be outputting ID, then that current status will be changed as F, I'll be outputting F, it will be changed as T, I'll be outputting T, and so on. So whatever you can see here, that is stored in where? Current. Okay, current status, that's name, its array's name is STK. Okay, and two things we have, the reduce string and the shift string. Why do we need the reduce string? Why do we need the shift string? Sometimes we are using the keyword shift ID, sometimes we are using reduce F goes to ID, reduce T goes to F. These things we are using, right? So for that, to output these things, we'll be using these two arrays. In the case if it is a shift operation, we'll be having some logic to find out if it's a shift operation or a reduce operation. Based on that logic, if it is a shift operation, we'll be outputting shift by using the AC array, if ACT array, and if it's the reduce operation, we'll be outputting it using the AC array. So that's why we have taken two arrays here, which will be storing the what reduction or the what shifting operation is being performed, and that is stored in ACT and AC, and those will be using for outputting the action. Now the question is the about the middle column. How do we output the middle column? Middle column is the input. So as you can see, the input is just either getting shifted here or it will stay the same. Okay, either it is getting shifted or it will be staying the same as here. So only two things are possible. So for the input array, what I will do, when it gets shifted, I'll cut these two, I'll start the input from here. Then whenever it is staying same, it will stay same. If it is shifting, I'll cut this and I'll start the input from here. Each time whatever I'll be outputting is this input array. So input array where all I cut in the starting, that will not be displayed in the further iterations, and it will start from the next next position. So three things we are outputting. One is for stack, input, and action. Action can be two types, shift and reduce. So two arrays I'm using, and for the input I'm using input array, which is also known as A array, as it's written in the code, that name is given as A, and stack is stored in STK. Okay, so that's all why we use these four variables. You'll get a more clear means picture of what is actually happening in the background when we go through the code. Okay, so these are the variables used, and let me show you the flow of the code. Okay, in the flow of the code, as usual, there are three things here. First is the header files, second is the variables, and third is the functions. So in header files, what you will include is stdio and string.h. Okay, so these are the two header files, and the variables, we need four variables: a, ac, stk, and act, and along with that we need the variables like a, I, j, k, z, c, and yeah, this much variables we need. And in addition to these ones, these are just for keeping the counts. Okay, so we need not worry about that one. So what are the two functions? Two functions are, one is the main function and one is the check function. So let's see what does the main function do. Main function, first it will output the grammar. That's the first thing. It will do the printf statement, which is outputting the grammar. What is the grammar? Means in the output what will happen, this will be displayed. Here it will be stored as a string, then slash n will be there, again as string, slash n, and again as a string. So if you printf this one, it will print it in the different lines like this. Okay, that's what the first step of the means, that's what the first thing the main function will do. Then what we have is the output. So in the output it will be displayed as this one. So we'll have another print statement which will show the output as follows. We'll be making it ready, and means the headers we are initializing, and after that each line will be printing like what is the status of stack, what is the status of input, what is the action type. So these things will be iteratively getting printed. So the outline is being printed out by the main function. Okay, and then what we have is the last thing which is in the main function, which is the if else condition. See, there are two possibilities. If you observe the input carefully, there can be two possibilities. Either ID will be the thing which will be taken into consideration, or any symbol can be there. These are the only two possibilities. Either ID will be there or any symbol will be there, like plus or into. Right, only these two things are defined in the program. So that's why we have the if else condition. In the first if condition, if the input is ID, push it into the stack. Stack means it will show the current status, right? So what we are doing here is, to get the current status, if its ID is the input, I have to shift this input here, and I'll also add it into the stack. Why we add it into the stack? To output here in the next line. So for that, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if it is plus, at that time, if the time comes to means shift plus, I'll be shifting that plus and adding this plus into the stack as well. Okay, so for these two variations, we are just using if else condition. If it is the id, push it in the stack. If it is a symbol, push it in the stack. Then call check after the if else. Check condition is what that we will be seeing now. Okay, now if you are just pushing here, at that time what we are doing is pushing either id or pushing either the symbol. In both of the push statement, we are just shifting it. So after we do the push statement, means from the input to the stack array, after I insert this value here, at that time I will also print out shift id, means whatever I shifted, that will be printed. Also I will be printing, if it's a symbol, I'll be outputting like shift symbol. Okay, so that's all what is there in the push statement. If else condition. Okay, then what we are doing is, then call check after each if else. Then we are calling check. What does check do? For example, here what we did is, after we shifted id, then I'm calling check. I want to check like if id can be reduced further or not. That's what we are checking. Okay, it's a infinite while loop. There will be continuously checking if id can be reduced to the next one, the next one can be reduced to the other next one, and so on till I cannot reduce further. The while loop will keep on running. So let's see what is the check function. In the check function, what we have is 6 reduce statements. Why we need 6 reduce statements? Because either id can be reduced to f and bracket t can be reduced to f. Two statements here, f and tf. Another two statements, t can be becoming e, t can become e, and e plus t can become e. There are two statements, so 6 reduce statements are there. I'll be checking each if else condition, which situation I am at. For example, if I am currently at id, okay, so I'll be checking from here, id can be reduced to f. I'll be performing this operation. Then I have the current status as f. Then I'll be checking f can be reduced to t. I'll be changing it to t. T can be reduced to e. I'll be changing it to e. Else, if my situation is like e plus t, then I'll be checking, is id, no, is it e, no, is it f, no, no, no. I'll come here, it is true, then I'll reduce it to e. So that's the sixth condition which is getting true. Like that, we'll check all the 6 conditions and make the corresponding changes. Okay, so this is the code part for it. And reduce f goes to id, that will be printed in the last action part. This will be printed, reduce f goes to id. If it's matching the case, f goes to id. And then we'll be checking if it's id or not. Okay, if it's id, at that what does that mean is, I am currently presented id, and id can be reduced to what? F, right? So I obviously know that, because I know the rules. Id can be reduced to f only and not any other thing. So I'm checking if it is id, then I'll be updating the stack as f. So instead of id, I'll have f in the stack part. What I mean is, where is my stack part? Here is the stack part. In the stack part, I will be cutting id and I will be writing f. So that's the current status, and I'll be printing the current status each time. So first it was id, and I updated the current status, so it will print as f. So that's the whole code. Let's go through the code part. If you did not understand any part of the code, you can always rewind and watch that part again. So let's go to the code part and see what it is. Okay, so as I told you, remember the flow of the program. In the flow of the program, what we have is the header files. This is the first part. The second part is the variables part. Here we have the integer variables, here we have the character arrays. Okay, how many arrays we have? A array, AC array, STK, and ACT. A array is for the input, that's the first thing. STK array is for the stack stack content. To output the stack content, we are storing that whatever will be outputting here. Input array will be taken from this one. And we have AC and ACT. Why we need why we need AC and ACT? AC arrays for like reduce, and ACT arrays for shift. If you want to output shift, we'll be using the ACT array. If you want to output reduce and some statement, that will be using AC array. Okay, so for the 3 columns output, we'll be using these arrays. Okay, then we have two functions. First one is the void and second is the main. I mean, the first one is check and second is main. So let's start from main. What it will do is put as grammar. Whatever is the grammar, it will output after the slash ends. So it will be like a line form. And after that, we'll be getting the length. C is equal to string length of a. So C will be equal to 8 in our case, because that id is id, means input is id plus id star id. That total length is 8. Okay, then we have the for loop here. The for loop is running from j to c. That's the breaking condition. So j will be keeping the track of input. Okay, so unless the whole input is traversed, it will be keeping track of that. So if id plus id star id that is present here, at that time it will come till here, and after that gets over it will stop. Okay, so that much time it will run. Now we are doing what in main condition, we are going to if we are doing to if else statements check, right? So in the if, what will have, if a is a of j and a of j plus 1 is equal to I and d, means the first symbols are I and d, at that time we have to do this one. Else if it is not I and d, means it's obviously any symbol, then you have to do this one. Let's say what are the two things which is happening. If it is id, what will happen is a of j will be stored in stk of I, a of j plus 1 will be stored in stk of I plus 1. So in stk what will be stored is a of j and a of j plus 1, which is nothing but id will be stored in stk. So that's the current status. Then I will be writing aj is equal to space aj plus 1 is equal to space, means since I have written id in stack, I will be out means removing I and d by outputting space in the place of input. So the input will start from plus id and so on. Okay, this will be the deleted part. So that's what we are doing here, and after that we are printing something here. What we are printing, stack content. A is the input means a stack content we are outputting, then we are outputting input, and act is nothing but shift array, because we have shifted the id, right? That's why our outputting act as shift. Remember I told you two arrays are there, ac and act is for shift and ac is for reduce. So after we have output that one, we will be calling check here. Let's discuss what is check, but before that let's see what is the else condition. If it is not id, means obviously it is some symbol, right? So what I will do, I'll just store that symbol in stk. So instead of id, that symbol will be stored. For example, if it is plus, then I'll be out writing as null, means null character, means this is the only input here, and then aj of, means wherever that place is, it will be space. So if it was id plus id, so at that plus space it will be removed, and the iteration will start from the this part in the input array. Okay, that's why we are outputting as space in the place of symbol which we fetched. Okay, then what we have, printf, and we'll be outputting whatever the thing we have got, like stack value. What is the current stack value? Dollar id plus will be there. After that a will be there. A is the input, so after we have shifted the input will start from here. Like id plus will be not outputting, whatever is the remaining part, that will be the input. In the actual shift reduce parsing problem also will be doing that only, right? If you have id plus id star id, at that time if the this one is shifted, will not be printing this one, will start from here, right? That's what we are doing here as well. And act will be outputting the shift thing, like shift what we have shifted, and also it is showing as symbol. So shift symbol will be the shown in the output screen. So we are just outputting the three things, stack, input, and action in this output part. Okay, so understood, right? Why we use if and else. If is for checking if it is id, then we'll be outputting it as follows, like shift id. If it is symbol, we are outputting as shift symbol, and we are updating the stack content, because stack will show the current status. After that we are calling check. Let's see what is check is. After you have shifted something, we'll be checking it can be reduced or not. So we are making this check here. How many checks are there? strcpy and a for loop here, and an if condition. strcpy for loop if condition, strcpy for loop and if condition. Same thing goes for all the things, like strcpy for loop and if condition. Here we have few more if condition, will come back to this, but that's the main overview, like strcpy for and if condition, strcpy for and if condition. Okay, so that's the main thing. So let's see why we use strcpy, why we use for loop, why we use if condition. So strcpy, what we are copying is the first thing, f goes to id, then we are checking if it's true or not, starting from 0 till c, and we are checking if it is id. If the current status is id, that means we can reduce it to f, right? So what we will do, we'll update the stack value as f. So in the stack, in the current status, it will become as f instead of id, and then I'll output that, like if it is reduced to f. So this will be the output here, and the reduced statement will also be outputted by this statement. Okay, so stack content is updated, this will be output here, as well as the input will be updated because of a, and after that will be outputting like reduce f goes to id. Okay, now if it is not true, means at this case it is not id, just this will remain as same, but this will not run, so we will not be able to print it is going to id. So what is the next case is, either it can be t star f, either it can be t goes to f, either it can be e goes to e plus t, and after that it can be reduce e goes to t, reduce f goes to e. Okay, so many possibilities are there. We'll be checking which is the suitable possibility, and we'll be going with that. Okay, so here, as I should shown you here, what will happen, we'll be setting the stack value as what is the reduced value, and we'll be printing that. Now this goes same for all of those, but just in this one, the third one, which is e goes to e plus t. Here we have few more if else conditions. Let's see why is the few more if conditions present here. We'll be doing the same thing. AC reduce e goes to et and it will run from 0 to c. At that time e is getting checked plus t. E plus t is only there, and the next character is not star, and a of j plus is also not star. So here we don't have star, as well as in the input we don't have star. If this is the case, then only we'll go with this one. Why we are doing this is because if it is star at that time, it can be t star id. This can be further reduced, right? So for that reason only we are checking. If it is not having star here, then we will be moving with e plus t only. Okay, that's what the check is getting made here. E plus t can be reduced to e, so it will be written as e here. Else if it's the case like e star, e goes to e plus t star id, id can be reduced to f, t star s can be reduced to t, then e plus t will be reduced. Okay, so that's why we are checking. Otherwise what will happen, e plus t will be there, e plus t will be reduced as e, and here id will be there, so e star id nothing is defined, so that will be becoming very hard, right? So we cannot parse it further. So that's what we are checking here, e plus t and j equal to c. J equal to c means c is the length of the character, means the input, and j is equal to c means it has reached the end. If it's reached the end, at that time also it is valid. Else break means it is not valid, means it's not valid to pass this one, right? E star id is not defined, so if you get an input in this form, that means it's invalid input. Okay, then yeah, that's what we have done here in the if else conditions, and the remaining are the same as I told you. What will happen, just go through it, you'll get to know. Okay, all right, so I think I have reached to the end of the explanation. So let's quickly wrap up what is there in the code and how do you approach this code, means memorize this code. Okay, so this is the first thing which is given to us. We have the grammar here which we have to parse, means shift reduce parsing, and this is the input given to us. Okay, two things we have to output, means this is the thing which you have to output first in the main function. Now this is the working which I had explained, and after that these are the four character arrays we are using for the input, reduce string, shift current status, and shift string. And the flow of the code is as follows. Header files you can remember, stdio and string. Variables there are AC, stk, and act. Why we need four variables? Means we have to output three columns, right? Input, why we need four variables then? And here we have action. So for st we have the stk, for input we have the a, and for the ac and act we have for the action, because action can be either reduce or shift. The same thing goes for reduce and shift, there is a choice in main function. So first output grammar, output the outline of the output, and after that we have the if else condition. This is for the condition where it is just id, so id will be the take into consideration, push into stk. Else if it's a symbol, push symbol into it. Then call call check after if each if else. What does check do? Before check we will be outputting shift, and if it's not possible we will be calling check. What does check do is it will check for each of the reduce, which reduce it matches. Based on that the stack value will be updated and it will be printed. So that's all what is there in this code, and I hope so you found this video helpful, and make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.